Hari Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram. Om Sri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopakarottam Pravaram Muninam Patanjali Pranjalina Natosmi. Hari Om. Time and again we have seen that the very fact that we have a world of our own, we constantly have a feeling that we stay in this world. We feel this world is real, but hardly ever we pay attention to the mind that creates the world. The presence of world around me, including my impression about me, is because of mind. We never observe the mind. Yoga Shastra only works on mind, antakarana. Have we all noticed that antakarana, our mind, has no existence of its own except when it functions? In Sanskrit, it is called karyanumeyi. If the function happens, mind is existing. You can't point out to a structure called mind. Brain is a structure. Even if it is not functioning, you can point out that this is brain. A stone apparently doesn't do anything, just lies on the road, but still you can say a structure called stone. A mind cannot be shown as a structure, but it exists purely as function. In other words, functionality of mind creates the world. If the functionality of the mind creates the world, then can the world be real? It's a very basic and fundamental question, that if world is created by mind and creation of world by mind is mind's only functionality, then if I am able to reduce the functionality of mind and eventually stop the functionality of the mind will not exist. The antakarana will not exist. It has fourfold functionality. The mind has fourfold functionality. Either it is thinking what world to create from the Pancha Mahabhutas, what world to create. Before understanding this functionality, it is very important to note that if the mind creates the universe, then does that mean that the universe is not existing? It's a very, very basic question. If mind stops functioning, will the world exist or it will not exist? Because if the world doesn't exist, then how is it that those who have yogis, who have made their mind dead, which is called amana avastha, how do they behave in this world? Because they should be seeing everything blank, which is not the case. This brings us to a very important word, that the world is mithya, not unreal. It is not real. It is not real means it is not satya. It is not unreal, that means asatya. It is in between, that is mithya. Myth is the word in English. Now, if it is myth, then the mind, when it creates the universe or the world around us, it creates a myth. Since it creates the myth, the reality of the world is existing, but not in the way mind perceives it. So it is a wrong, erroneous perception of the mind of the world around me through its functionality, which itself is faulty in nature, that I create a world around me which is not real and which is full of misery. So it goes without saying that my first lesson would be to control the mind in the manner it interprets the universe or it creates the universe, so that I develop a faculty, again through mind only, to perceive the world as it is. It means we are currently not perceiving the world as it is. When I look at the handkerchief, I call this as handkerchief. For the vyavahara or for the transaction, this name is enough. Its usage is to clean the face, and this is a handkerchief. This suffices me for the transactory world. But is this the nature of the handkerchief? No. The difference lies there. I refer to a friend of mine as Mr. So and so, Mr. Ram. When I say, I designate that particular person as a Ram, and that suffices me in my transactory world or vyavahara. So he gives me some money, I return it. That is sufficient for me in Vyavaharika Vishwa. But that Ram is not what I perceive. That Ram is different than what I perceive is the $1,000,000 question. So the whole exercise in Yoga Shastra is to train the mind in such a manner that one is able to recognize the true nature of objects around. And how do you do that? We do that by keenly observing the object. Keen observation is concentration. If one takes a stone in front of him and looks at it, we will say it is a stone. Maybe it is black in color. Nothing beyond that. Because for our Vyavharika Vishwa, these two criteria are enough. It's a small stone, black in color, irregular in shape. That's all. We do not go beyond this point. And now, if I decide to concentrate on the stone, what is going to happen? I will focus at the stone with a stronger concentration for a prolonged period of time, and then I'll be able to break the covering that the stone has and enter inside the stone to know its real nature. Because every object in the world is permeating with consciousness, a pure concentration on any object, whether it is stone, sand, clay, water, man, women, weapon, metal, irrespective of the item, if I focus correctly for a sufficient period of time, the buddhi or the intellect or the antakarana penetrates into that object and as if breaks open the object. Now, the logical question that comes to mind is, even the scientist in the physics laboratory is doing the same thing. He breaks open the stone and goes into the smaller and the smaller part of that particular object through the help of initially a normal microscope, then an electron microscope, maybe later on a bubble chamber, and ultimately reaches to see an atom. Then he goes further into quantum mechanics, and he's not question of now seeing. Now you, through mathematical calculation, ascertain the presence of minor particles. What happened was, now the eyes are of no use. You are using buddhi, mathematical calculations to come to the smallest possible particle. So a question comes to the mind, does that mean the yogi concentrates on the atoms and the subatomic particles? No. These subatomic particles were already studied by Vaisheshika Shastra. The great sage Kanad had already put in the concept of subatomic particles under the name of Paramanuvad. So a Paramanu is a subatomic particle which makes up an object. And millions and billions of Paramanus make an object. It is through the process of Dvainuka, Trainuka. We are not going to get into the details of Vaisheshika Shastra because it is a darshan by itself. One darshana called Patanjali Yoga Darshana, which we are studying, is so difficult for us to understand. Mind well, one darshana used to take couple of years in the yesteryears of the in the ancient India. The students, the Vidyarthi used to spend considerable period of time studying the Shada Darshanas, of which one is Yoga Darshana, which we are trying to study by devoting only 1 hour once a week, and we intend to be master of that. It is a Gahana Shastra. It is a science of depth. So it requires enormous amount of patience, a clean and clear intellect, an ability to think and dive deeply into the sutras of Patanjali's. Coming back to the point, Paramanus or the subatomic particles are not the one the yogi is trying to concentrate upon. It is not that when he is contemplating, he is seeing the pulsating uh, Paramanus or the atoms. In fact, he sees something beyond that. What happens is any object that we take is made up of billions of subatomic particles. We are all aware of it. But each of these particle has a guna or a dharma. Let us take example. If a subatomic particle or atomic particle is vibrating at a very high frequency, the object becomes hot. What we call as a hot object is nothing else but a, a, a very fast paced movement of subatomic and atomic particles, vibrations at a very high level. It leads to energy release, which we feel as heat. Now, when we look at that particular object, there are two things we see there. One is those atomic and subatomic particles vibrating at a very high frequency, giving rise to heat. And second is the heat itself, the cumulative effect of the atomic and subatomic particles is heat. What the yogi does is he concentrates not on the particles, particles are called avayava, but he concentrates on the avayavi, the heat. If you take a cow, there are millions of small skin cell, muscle cell, bone cells, and their subatomic, their particles making a whole thing called cow. So, cow is nothing else but the cumulative effect of all the particles involved in making a cow. So, that cumulative effect is called avayavi, and the particles are called avayava. So, avayava is not the point of concentration for yogi. Otherwise, Rutherford and all scientists, including Max Planck and everybody, could have become yogi because they studied the subatomic particles. It is not so, because it is not the particle, it is the cumulative effect of the particle. Agreed that the cumulative effect is given by the individual particle. But individual particles, when they come together, it creates an effect which is called avayavi. A little subtler aspect of concentration we are trying to study. If this is the case, then when somebody takes Ishta Devata in front of him, like Prabhu Ramachandra idol or Krishna idol, then he sits and starts focusing on that object. While focusing, he requires a penetrating intellect so that he can break open as if to see the inner structure or the real structure of any object in the world. Unfortunately, the kind of penetrating power that you require for the intellect or the buddhi cannot be obtained unless you have sharpened the tool, and sharpening the tool means increasing the sattva guna of the intellect. So those who are having higher rajoguna, higher tamoguna, please do not expect any concentration, because concentration, ekagrata, is effect of sattva guna. That is why people try to meditate. Sometimes they think that they are meditating, they are not, because it leads to nothing. No change happens in them. A yoga is meant for change that should come to you. no change comes to us because our meditation is a hopeless meditation done with a very dull instrument called buddhi. So the first aspect is to make the buddhi bright, sukshma, and bhedaka, penetrating. That can be done only when raj and tama is shed off. To shed off rajatama means vairagya. If you have any envious mind or envious thought about anybody, it is a tamoguna. How can such a mind concentrate? If your mind is hovering about what will happen in future, how much money will I get, what will happen to my family, his family is very close to me, that man is not close to me, he is my enemy, these are the things which are completely unrequired in concentration. So those who do chitta shuddhi, which itself means removing mala, which itself means rajatama removal. The so-called mala that we have heard so many times is nothing else but rajatama guna. So the one who is in tamoguna should make efforts, all out efforts to come into rajoguna. The one who is in rajoguna, rajoguna is upwardly mobile and successful networking individual in the modern language. He should immediately realize that I'm dissipating my energies in so-called networking and the social networks and whatnot. He should withdraw himself from the rajasic activity of the mind, and then perhaps the mind shall come back into sattva guna and the concentration will start happening. Mind well, when the outer world is cut off from you because you closed your eyes, maybe there is silence around, so no indriyas are interacting with the world now. The interaction then starts with the inner world. The inner world of ours is world of smriti or memories. So sitting here, closing eyes, people look at me and feel, oh, he is meditating. Actually, he's still in the world. Only thing is, he's now in the inner world of memories. Memories are the biggest obstacles in concentration. The mind, when it is not going outside towards any object, because the eyes are closed and the indriyas are closed, it then plunges back into the memories and brings out lots and lots of memories to play with. And that is the reason we ask, kya soch rahe ho? What are you thinking? Thinking meaning you are bringing something, some thoughts from your memory, from your mind, and you are contemplating on that. That is not concentration. It is only when the outside world is shut off and the inner world is shut off. The question of shutting off outer world can be handled by closing eyes and perhaps closing the ears. Other indriyas do not work any case. How do we shut off the inner world of memories? The only way to shut off inner world of memories is letting the mind concentrate on one object. When it goes into the world of memories, it hops from memory to memory and keeps on circulating and keeps on running around, running amok like a bull in a Chinese shop or a monkey that has gone berserk. That is the way the mind moves inside the memories. But if it is focused on one particular object, the whole purpose of focusing on a one particular object is to stop the fluctuations of the mind. Once we do this particular practice of focusing on one particular aspect, on particular object, the mind, then With God's grace, with previous births, with the amount of sattva guna that one has, one is able to focus onto the object and break open the object. Break open the object meaning the object has three criterias: the shabda, the artha, the jnana. The shabda is this is a Ramamurti. Jnana is he is son of a Dasharatha. He is a husband of Sita Mata. This is a jnana. These two are superficial. They are to be discarded. With great amount of ekagrata, only the artha remains. What is artha? The real meaning behind the idol of Ram or Krishna. And what is the real meaning? You move from gross manifested world to sukshma vishaya of that particular murti. So initially when you look at the murti, you see the sthula vishay. What is sthula vishay? It is stone, it is black in color, it is Bhagavan Rama's murti, it is etc. etc. These are sthula vishayas. Who does the grahana of sthula vishaya? The indriyas. So when I'm closing my eyes but imagining a Ramamurti, my mind is acting as a indriya. Manaha shashtani indriyani prakrutisthani karshate. But when I go deeper, now the indriyas are of no use. When you go deeper, the function made by five indriyas is now made by only one particular aspect of buddhi. It is called pratibha. So when you are on the ground, the vehicle is car. But when you start flying upwards, you need a plane. Similarly, when you are into this world, you require panchendriyas. But as you go up into the higher realms of consciousness, you are going to utilize that aspect of buddhi, which is not ordinary buddhi, it is a specialized buddhi, higher buddhi, sharper buddhi, purer buddhi, penetrating buddhi, sukshma buddhi. It is called pratibha. This pratibha, when it focuses on an object and breaks open the object to see the micro aspect of the object or the sukshma vishaya of the object, then the same pratibha becomes prajna. Mind well, in Bhagavad Gita, the yogi is not called as Sthita Buddhi, he is called Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajna is different than Sthita Buddhi. Sthita Prajna is only when the Buddhi has graduated to Pratibha and gone beyond Pratibha to the Prajna level, then only you can get stabilized. So he is a Sthita Prajna. Now, what this particular Prajna does on a sthula body, by focusing, it separates jnana, shabda, and artha. When it first separates and sees these three things standing as if in front of it, it is called savitarka samprajnat samadhi, a samadhi obtained by prajna in which three things are separately perceived. Mind well, in concentration and ekagrata, things are all perceived in mind. There is nothing to see. They are all perceived in the mind. In fact, our regular seeing is also only perceiving. We feel the eyes are seeing. Sir, eyes are not seeing. Kene shitam patati preshitam manaha. Kena pranaha prathama praitiyuktaha. Keneshitam vacham imam vadanti. Chakshu Shrotra Devo Yunakti. Who is seeing? Who is talking? That which is talking, that which is seeing, is now going to see. Such a seeing is not drushti. That is why the word used in Sanskrit is pashyati. Pashyati is direct perception. You have an eye, there is a stone, and I am there. So, me, the eyes, and the stone, I perceive the stone. This is through Indriya perception. This is Sa Indriya Anubhuti. But in concentration, you do not require the Indriya, you do not require the object, you get direct perception, Atindriya Anubhuti. Then, once you have explored the item, the object, and seen Shabda, Artha, Jnana as separate, as if they're standing in front of you, your Savitarka Samadhi, now further focus when it is put on it, these three distinguishing factors are lost. And only energy form is seen. Now the object doesn't appear as a Shabda, it's gone. Artha is gone, Jnana is gone. Only the object in its reality. How does the object look at that time? Sir, it is not a question of looking. It is a question of direct perception, anubhuti. The object then appears as if it is a bundle of energy. And once that object appears as a bundle of energy, because of its concentration, yogi sees the whole world as plethora of energy, exuberance of energy. This energy is called tanmatra. Tanmatra, the microscopic aspect of the object. The yogi doesn't wait there, focuses further. Now, what is going to happen is, henceforth, there will be no object in front of yogi's eyes, even the mental eye, because he's anyway closed his eyes. In front of mental eye also, there is no object. He has directly gone to Sukshma Bhuta Vishaya. As he goes on penetrating in Sukshma Bhuta Vishaya, he comes to what is called Savichara and Nirvichara Sampradnyat Samadhi, the next stage. In case of Savichara and Nirvichara Sampradnyat Samadhi, what he's trying to do is, he's basically going one step further. And one step further means a normal object has Shabda, Artha, and Jnana. But Sukshma Bhuta, microscopic object, has Desha, Kala, Nimitta. Desha, Kala, Nimitta. Now, in Desha Kala means those energy forms that he sees, he's still aware that this particular energy form is here or there, and now I am perceiving it. So he has a knowledge of time and space in that experience. Further he focuses, then those boundaries of Desha, Kala, Nimitta are gone, and then he is completely engrossed into the Sukshma Bhuta called Tanmatras, which is nothing else but the energy aspect of the whole universe, without having any relation or relevance with the time and space. As a result, yogi gets engrossed. This is the point where he has no idea of his body. He has no idea of his respiration. He has no idea of his heartbeats. All this is happening naturally. In fact, he's not even paying attention because the attention is already gone beyond time and space. This is the stage when he comes out of samadhi, he asks a question. What is the time? And then the colleagues or the Saha Adhyayi tells him, oh, you sat for meditation in the morning. It is evening now, sir. And he says, no, I did not feel anything. Why? Because the feeling, perception of time is gone. This is what precisely happened in the year 1892 on 25th of December. The Yatiraj, a young monk called Swami Vivekananda, at the Kanyakumari coast, after the request of taking him to the Shripada Shila or the place where he meditated, the fisherman did not allow him to come in the boat because he had no money. So he swam across, went to the stone, and remained there in meditation for 3 days and 3 nights. Where was he? How is it that he stayed there without any food? To the extent, after seeing going there, the fisherman asked him, sir, Swamiji, would you need some food? He did tell them that keep some bananas and coconuts there at the stone, but he hardly used it because he was unaware of the time once he went into the meditation. Where did he go in terms of his mind? He went right here, what we are describing. He concentrated on what? By closing his eyes. And then he moved his concentration upward, went through the Savitarka Nivritarka stage. Easily, he was Yatiraj, master of yogis. Easily he penetrated that, went into Savichara Nirvichara, then went further. Where do you go further than that? The further is something very interesting and very, very intriguing. When I'm doing Savitarka, Nirvitarka and Savichara, Nirvichara, I'm using my mind or Antakarana or Buddhi to penetrate. Now imagine the sword that is used to kill the animal. Now is the time to kill the sword itself. Now the concentration is made on Antakarana itself. Mind concentrating on mind. A thing very difficult to understand at this stage. But it comes when somebody reaches up to station 1, the door for station 2 opens. It is all theoretical for us. It is an absolute practical thing for a yogi. So when he goes through stage 1 and stage 2, the Nirvitarka, Savitarka and Nirvichara and Savichara, then he goes to what is called as Ananda Anugata Savichar Nirvichara Samadhi. What is Ananda Anugata? Ananda is Indriya Anugata. Which is the Indriya in this stage? Mind is the Indriya because all the Indriyas are already gone off. So the yogi focuses on the mind itself. And at that point of time, as a result of that, now the energy forms are getting replaced with a new feeling, a new perception, a new anubhuti. And this anubhuti is only and only Ananda. So that Ananda, he is in Ananda Avastha. That is why it is called Ananda Anugata Samadhi. Many of them wait and stay here, but not a yogi of the caliber of Swami Vivekananda, not a yogi of the caliber of Gurudeva. They persisted beyond this point. And what is the point beyond this point? The ahankara or the me. The mind was made as a point of concentration. So mind concentrated on mind. Now the mind is concentrated on the concentrator. This is called Grahita Samadhi. Ahankar. Imagine mind or the buddhi is made to concentrate on the ego aspect or the ahankar itself or the perceptor himself. This is the last bastion. Asmita Anugata Samadhi. Once this is transcended, the last trace of me as my ahankara is gone. And when that is gone, a point comes when the meditator dissolves, because the whole game of concentration is over, sir, because there is no meditator left. When meditator is not there, how can there be meditation? This is precisely has been described in what is called as sannyasa karma. Kartrutva bhava virahitata is what? You do not have any iota in your mind that you are acting, because you is gone. And to annihilate me in me is the last bastion. After that, what remains cannot be described. Why cannot be described? Because all the descriptions are available only when ahankara is existing. When he himself is gone, then what is there? Something is there. What is that something there? Cannot be described. All that can be said is what remains thereafter is definitely not what remains in your world. This is called moving beyond, because now the buddhi has expanded so high and so wide that all knowledge of the entire created universe is within the grasp. That is why, whether it is a doubt in grammar or a doubt in Bible or a doubt in Latin language or a doubt or a samshaya in philosophy of any kind, Vivekananda could give answer at any moment, because it was not a learned language or learned knowledge. Knowledge itself had dawned in front. They themselves are knowledge per se. They are jnanamaya. In fact, that is why it is said that all the yogis of this caliber, what they speak is jnana. We try to find out jnanam in what is spoken, while in case of the vibhutis, the rishis and the munis and the yogis, what they say is a jnanam. Now that we have understood the the 45th sutra says sukshma vishayatvam cha alinga paryavasanam. The whole journey of concentration is from sthula, gross, to the sukshma, sukshmatara, sukshmataram. That means subtler and subtler and subtler objects. How do you go from subtler to subtler? Vachaspati Mishra gives a beautiful explanation. When you are concentrating on Parthiva, Parthiva means made up of earth. That means all the objects that we see. When you concentrate on Parthiva, the Sukshma Vishaya, Parmanu Sukshma Vishaya is Gandha Tanmatra. That is why this beautiful smell, sweet aroma is the first thing that manifests. Then, when you concentrate on Tejas, Tejas means anything related to fire, all the fire worshippers, those who concentrate on fire as an aspect. You can concentrate on fire as an aspect. When those who concentrate as fire, they get what is called Rupa Tanmatra. The divine shapes are seen by them in concentration. Those who go for Jaliya Paramanu Sukshma Vishaya, that means water, those they get Rasatan Matra, sweet taste comes into the mouth. Those who concentrate on Vayu, Vayaviya Paramanu Sukshma Vishaya, they get Sparshatan Matra. Because Vayu is represented by Hanuman, the concentration of Hanuman gives us the feeling of sparsha of divine types. Those who do this on Akasha Paramanu, they get what is called a Shabda Tanmatra. So they focus on Akash, void, Vyoma, it is called. So Vyoma Sadhana, if you focus on Akasha, then you get divine words. Those divine words, they start dancing in front of you. Mind well, some of these rishis, when they were in that particularly unmana, that means elevated mind avastha, and focusing on akash as a paramanu, they get to know the shabda, not the shabda of what I am speaking, but these shabdas into their original form, which are called matrukas. They are very funny words in the beginning, and they are subtler aspects of word energy, which sometimes the rishis remember and utter. Those are called bija mantras. Om Glom Gang Ganapataye Namaha is the bija mantra of Ganesha. Where did this glom came from? Where did the gum came from? We don't use a word in our language as gum, glom, rim, klim, om. These are not words. These are the matrukas that are observed and seen, not observed, perceived at a higher realm of consciousness when the yogi is trying to concentrate on Akasha Paramanu. Then further to that, yogi still sits. Instead of individual Panchamahabhutas, he takes all tanmatras together and concentrates on that. What is all tanmatras together? Mind, sir. If you look at the Sankhya Tattvajnana that we studied in the early classes, we had clearly seen that how the mind is made up of all Rajaguna together. Buddhi is made up of all a jnanansha of sattvagunansha of all mahabhutas. Rajoguna of all mahabhutas is chanchalamana. Sattva-guna of all Mahabhutas is what? Buddhi. Now, when these tanmatras are together being meditated upon, so tanmatra paramanu sukshma vishaya opens up ahankara. Further to that, when the yogi concentrates on ahankara, means on himself, at that time he goes to the further tattva that is called mahat tattva. And this is the last bastion. A yogi of extraordinary caliber and determination then focuses on this Mahat Tattva, and beyond that, he has Purusha Khyati or Atma Darshanam. Now, there is nothing beyond that. Why nothing beyond that? Why it is so? Because from the stula to the sukshma, all the cascade that we saw, the stula, then tanmatras, then pancha tanmatras together, then ahankar, then avyakta, and then prakriti, and then purusha, all this we saw, each one is upadana karana of the next, while purusha is the nimitta karana. So there is no karana for this karana, so there is no further concentration possible, one, and there is nobody to concentrate. Why? You have become Atma Swarupa. Atma Swarupa means you are the one and the one everywhere. So when there is only one and only one everywhere, there is no two, If there is no two, there is no concentration, because one cannot concentration on one. If one cannot concentrate on one, the concentration is over. This is the process of going backward. This is also called involution of consciousness. In fact, that consciousness has come down by evolution, and that is how we are formed. We are down at the bottom of the cascade. Yogi goes backwards to the root, to the throat, to the mool of the Ganga. We are at the end of the spectrum. We go backwards. We have evolved. We have to involve and go back. And all this, when we are dying, every time the mind is trying to go back through two methods. One, initially you require an object, you require something to cling to, you require an alambana to concentrate. Mind well, the word used is not ekagrata in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. The word used is samapatti. Samapatti means concentration, but samapatti means becoming one. So concentration, ekagrata is a process. A result is samapatti. Focusing on an object is ekagrata. But ekagrata, when it is complete and fulfilled, it becomes samapatti. You become one. The object and the subject becomes one. So when this samapatti is done, we require an object in front of us. Initially, a gross object. Later on, a microscopic object or tanmatras. Later on, mind as an object. Later on, ahankar as an object. So the question is, whenever you use a alambana, it is called sabija samadhi. Sabija means what? Like a seed, you are focusing on the object, and then the seed sprouts into a tree. So you focus on that particular alambana, and then the further things sprout out of it. On a stool object of Ramamurti, you concentrate, and then what happens? Tanmatras appear. So that is why that object is called bija. Now, sabija samadhi is that where you use an alambana. It could be either Sukshma Vishaya or Sthula Vishaya. It could be Savitarka, Nirvitarka, Savichara, Nirvichara. These are the aspects of concentration, but Vishay can be Sthula and Sukshma, Sukshma, Sukshmatara, Sukshmatara, depending upon where the yogi reaches. Bahya Vastu Rupa Alambana Sabija Samadhi. Now the question is, you focus on a gross object, you focus on a tanmatra, you focus on the mind, you focus on yourself. These are called sabija samadhi because there is always you focus on something. After the ahankar is over, there is nothing to focus. That is why it is called nirbija samadhi. I hope this is clear. Nirbija samadhi is the mind is not focusing on anything. Then what is mind doing? What is mind doing if it is not focusing on anything? It is not existing, sir. Why? Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. The nirodha is complete. There is no vritti happening on the mind. So what is remaining there? Chitta. Then what will that chitta grasp, absorb? The universality of the consciousness. Because the mind now is neither getting engaged into the world, nor into an object which is sthula, nor into the sukshma object, nor on myself, nor on my mind. And in the beginning of today's session, we said mind is nothing else but functionality. When its functions are over, where is the mind? The mind is not there. But the yogi is still alive. How will you work without the mind in this world? Because without mind, you cannot work. Otherwise, you will not come to know what is happening. If the yogi will not remember, he has to eat, he has to drink. This is called a Jivan Mukta Vichara. There is a very, very good writing by Adi Shankaracharya on that. Vivek Chudamani also glimpses on this. What happens is the dead mind, the remnant of the mind which is there, it acts as a pure conduit for the consciousness. It doesn't do anything on itself. The prism called mind now passes the light coming from the consciousness outwards at same light, does not do the refraction or the diffraction of the light, which happens in our case. So the yogi which has reached to Atma Darshanam stage once is enough. Once they reach there, there is nothing like coming down again. Once he becomes mukta, he's always mukta. At that stage, his mind is there, but it is like a passive prism which simply percolates the consciousness through the mind to the world. And because the consciousness percolates through the mind of such people, consciousness is the Satchit Ananda. That is why the yogis of such type, the Jivan Muktas of such type, are the real jewels in this world. That is why whatever they do is nothing else but the direct effect of Chaitanya consciousness in its own purity. So it has its own beauty, Anandam, because Satchit Ananda. That is why everything Gurudeva did, it evoked Anandam in everybody's heart. Not one single soul felt ill at ease with Gurudeva. Somebody liked his smile. Somebody liked only looking at him. Vivekananda, when he used to walk, people used to look at him. A majestic walk. To the extent, in a place like Paris, the coachman came and asked Vivekananda, "Are you a king of some principality in India?" Vivekananda said, "No, I am a sannyasi, I am a monk." He said, "No, no, you are lying. You look so regal." From where that regality comes, from where that kingship comes. Gurudeva's walk, Gurudeva's look, the eyes, the luster, the talk, the walk, everything resonates with consciousness. That is why, although the boy Sri Krishna was barely 9-10 years old in Vrindavana, the Devas used to come to watch him playing and going behind the cows. What is so great in going behind the cows? No, sir, it is a scene to watch because we have not seen anything of that kind. Only few fortunate ones are able to see with their own indriyas, own eyes, such Jivan Muktas. So that is the situation of these four samadhis, which is classified as Sabija Samadhi and Nirbija Samadhi. So Sabija Samadhi is Alambana Yukta Samadhi, where there is an item of focus, and when this item of focus is gone, there is no alambana, and yet you are able to remain in concentrated state. It is called Nirbija Samadhi. That is the Samadhi in which the ultimate dawn of knowledge, Purusha Khyati, as described in Sankhya, or Atma Darshanam, as described in Advaita, or Brahma Prapti, or Brahmeva Bhavati, as described in Advaita, or Kevala Jnana Prapti, as described on Sankhya, happens. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Mudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Hari Om Sanjay ji, while Mudit ji thinks of his questions, you talked about fourfold functionality of the mind, which
Yes.
started with the what world to create, power of the world, perceive the world, and what were the other three and four?
The fourfold functionality of mind with which we work in our today's world is, the first is the sankalpa and the vikalpa, the choice that we try to make. Because the perception of the world is only at the object level, we have a dvaita or a duality in our mind. So we try to choose between. So there is an optional choosing. The optional choosing functionality of mind is called mana. Then, amongst the option, when we try to catch hold of only one option, we focus on one instead of multiplicity. That is the another aspect of functionality, which is nishchayatmaka vritti buddhihi. That is buddhi. Now you had option, then you had fixing of option at one. That is fine. Now what you want to do is you want to catch hold of that particular thing in your mind. So let us take an example. When you take your morning tea, the first thought that comes to your mind is, I want to take a morning tea. This is sankalpa. Then the question comes, should I wake my wife and ask her to make the tea, or should I make it myself? Option, vikalpa. Then you decide, I will make it myself, buddhi. Now that you decided, you make that particular tea, and then what you do? Till the time you make the tea, the subject called tea making is holding your mind. It is deeply rooted in your mind till the tea is over. So that is why your mind is holding that subject. This holding is called chitta. And then during the entire process, you are constantly aware that I chose, I thought, I, I was holding, I had the tea. That is called ahankara. These are the fourfold functionalities of mind. Now, when you prepare the tea and have your first sip, at the time of that first sip, for the microsecond, these fourfold functionalities are lost. Lost means for a microsecond, mind is lost, mind is dead. And death of mind is appearance of consciousness. Because consciousness is Ananda Swarupa, you feel good. But we do not realize why the goodness came. We say, the tea gave me the happiness. No, sir, tea cannot give you the happiness. Happiness came because your mind was dead for a microsecond. When the consciousness projected it through you, that is Anandam. That is Vishaya Sukha. Hari.
Thank you.
Uh, Sanjay ji, on the same, fourfold functionality. So after Ahankar, when you're saying that Ananda Sukh comes after, uh, is it crossing Ahankar or is it a momentary lapse of?
It is a momentary lapse of ahankar. Momentary lapse of ahankar itself means of the mind itself. It is when the anandam is experienced, all the fourfold functions are gone because the mind itself is not existing. But it's for a very, very microsecond part.
Okay. And so the other thing is when you talked of Sabija and Nirbija, basically there is an object and there is no object. Then it covers all the, under these two, covers all the other aspects of samadhis, right?
Yes, so all the sampradnyat samadhi that we called, that is where using your, I already explained, a normal buddhi is called buddhi. Then it becomes pratibha when it starts focus penetrating. It is
Yeah.
called pratibha. When the penetration is over, the same pratibha becomes prajna. Now with this prajna, you take the alambana, that is object, and then you, so that is why it is sabija samadhi. Now what happens when the alambana is over? Then who is on what you are concentrating? When the alambana is over, on what you are concentrating? You are not concentrating on anything. But are you in concentration? Yes. Then you are not concentrating on anything. How can there be concentration? That is why it is called Nirbija Samadhi, which is actually the Samadhi. Samadhi means there is no concentrator, there is no concentration, there is no concentration object. Now, at this point of time, still there is buddhi. But what is this buddhi called? Now the prajna becomes rutambhara. So, buddhi, pratibha, prajna, rutambhara. This rutambhara buddhi, we are going to see it in the next class. In the next sutra, rutambhara is going to come. This rutambhara buddhi is the buddhi with which Gurudeva, Swami Vivekananda, Ramakrishna Paramos, they are in this world. That is why rutambhara buddhi does not require any knowledge, prior knowledge of any object to know an object. They know everything by itself, yugapata. So the fact is, they do not attempt to get the knowledge of any subject. The knowledge is there in them. This is that Rutambhara Buddhi. We are going to see that Rutambhara Buddhi in little bit detail in the next class. Hari Om.
Sanjay ji, what is Medha in that?
See, Medha is a general name given for a buddhi which is in the flying mode. Flying mode means the one which is now started moving upwards. So it is a general word, not a specific act related word. Pratibha is that which is penetrating. Prajna is that which opens up tanmatra. Rutambhara is that which comes only after ahankara. So there are specific locations. Medha is a gun or a dharma of buddhi. That buddhi which is vikasita, which is under expansion, is medha. That is why we have a sage called Medha Tithi. Medha Tithi means the one whose buddhi is under expansion. And what is buddhi? Sattva guna. That means one whose sattva guna is ever expanding and becoming more and more luminous. That is called Medha.